This Friday, Virginia Opera will open its final production of the season, Donizetti's bel canto masterpiece, Lucia de Lammermoor. Singing the challenging title role will be Rachele Gilmore. Though new to Virginia Opera, Ms. Gilmore has established herself as one of the finest coloratura sopranos singing today, with performances in opera houses around the world. Her Metropolitan Opera debut was in 2009, when, with less than 4 hours' notice, she stepped in to sing the role of Olympia in The Tales of Hoffmann, interpolating a high A-flat into the aria, which is still being talked about in operatic circles. She has sung Lucia several times in her career.
I sang Lucia for the first time before I turned 30, and I think I was 29, and it was right after my Met debut, as a matter of fact. And I think, when you're first learning a role like Lucia, it's quite extensive and quite complicated. And with a lot of bel canto, as I've learned throughout my career, is that you constantly are learning and you're constantly adding more layers than when you did the role the first, second, third, fourth time. So I think I've done the role a few times since then, and I've been able to learn from the conductors and directors that I've worked with in other companies, and every time you're learning something new, you're learning something about the character or the music that you didn't discover before, and it's happening again with this process. I'm working with Ari Pelto, a conductor that I really enjoy working with, and I love his ideas, and he's adding some new layers, and of course Kyle I've never worked with before. So you're always learning with bel canto. It's a sort of a lifelong journey.
Yeah. And this particular opera, for a while, and for some people perhaps, it is purely a coloratura vehicle, but there is more to it than that. There's more depth than just the show part of it, right?
There absolutely is. And I think in the first two acts in particular, her music, although there is some coloratura, it's quite emotional, and it's tied very brilliantly in with the way that Donizetti wrote the vocal line, and it's more dramatic. And then when you have in the third act the mad scene, it's quite different. Although that scene as well is just very perfectly written, where the drama marries into the words. So you sort of have to, it's not just about the fireworks. Right. You really have to understand the character, understand the flourishes and why she's doing them, and, always have some sort of reason behind it.
Even early on, there are hints of what's to come.
Yes.
When she sees the ghost,
yes.
Things start to get a little weird.
Absolutely.
And so that portends the mad scene that comes.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. And I think that's important for the audience, too, to see in the first scene when she sings the aria Regnava nel silenzio. She's, sort of foreshadowing with the story of the ghost. And you sort of have to understand Lucia, and that, yes, she's in these circumstances where, it's a very patriarchal society, and she's a woman, she's a young woman in these terrible circumstances. But she herself is also, maybe a little elevated and not quite right in the head, as we would say today.
Right,
so you sort of have to see her go to a little bit of an extreme to understand then why that mad scene happens in the third act.
Are there ways to interpret that? I know it's in the music,
Yes.
but you can be over the top mad, or you could be a bit restrained. Is there room to create?
Absolutely. It's we're sort of discovering that right now. Actually, we just did the mad scene yesterday in rehearsal, and I played it many, many different ways. Sometimes there's a lot of blood. Sometimes there's not that much blood. Sometimes she's extremely, physically crazy and intense, and then sometimes it's more just an elevation of a natural behavior. So it's it's sort of something that you have to find with that particular director and try to combine your vision of the character plus their vision of what they see. And that's sort of the thing with bel canto, is you can interpret it many, many different ways. And you always want to pay attention to the text as well. But you can sort of put your own spin on it. And I think we're finding that still in our own rehearsal process here.
Soprano Rachele Gilmore talking about Lucia de Lammermoor. She'll sing the title role with Virginia Opera. The production opens at the Harrison Opera House Friday, March 23rd.